What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Opendoor. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So going into this upcoming week, the fear and greed index is under the fear category. So in theory, people's appetite for risk isn't necessarily on the table, and that's very apparent based on the volume that's been getting into Opendoor. So for instance, on Friday, 75.9 million, 78.5 on the Thursday. And I've been very vocal about this because Opendoor, in my opinion, is a very big momentum play. And if you're not getting a lot of capital to come in, you're opening yourself up for a lot of manipulation. So at the end of the day, that's something to keep in mind. But I do feel that this week we will be moving from the fear to the neutral category, because one kind of thing that's been really looming over the broader market has been China. And it looks like there was a very productive conversation that did occur on the 18th between 𝗪𝗧𝗪 and the vice premier, this individual, clearly a representative from China. So ultimately, the market will take this as a very big positive, because technically Trump is meeting with China at the very end of October. So this is going to be a good temporary patch until then. So the market's going to take that as a pretty good positive. And then aside from that, for data points, we do have a lot of big things coming out this week, especially that will affect Opendoor. So beginning part, we don't really have all of that much. We have a couple of Fed speakers, and that could in among itself cause some volatility, but you do have existing home sales that's coming out on Thursday. Regrettably, a lot of the other key data that technically would really help Opendoor to really move higher, that's still on pause because of the government shutdown. But on Friday, though, we do have CPI and Michigan consumer sentiment. So two big inflationary data points. And then as well, we do have the S&P putting out the composite manufacturing and services. And so, of course, 50 is a very key pivot. Anything above 50 does show more of an expansion. Anything below 50 shows more of a contraction. So Thursday and Friday are going to be huge for Opendoor. And then Friday is going to be massive, I guess, for just solely the broader market. Over and above that, though, we have a lot of big companies unveiling their earnings that could very much impact the broader market. So Netflix, Tesla, Intel, a lot of big names is going to be putting out their earnings, and everyone's going to be really paying attention to, more specifically, the future guidance. So if things go according to plan, you will see the market go through a very nice push higher, because despite on, I think it was Thursday, some Fed speakers did say that we already had some rate cuts priced in already for the October meeting. I kind of do disagree with that. So if a lot of this does go right, as far as companies unveiling earnings and there's no kind of real red flags that pop up, this is where you will start to see the market, in my opinion, start to price in that 25 basis point cut at least for the upcoming October meeting. There isn't really anything planned associated to Opendoor, so nothing really crazy. CAS has been very quiet, and a lot of members from Opendoor have been quiet. Of course, I think that some of that is because of their upcoming earnings, and so that is on November the 6th. And that's going to be after hours. So they're kind of in a quiet period a little bit. So probably they got the little bit of a nudge from their legal department, be like, shush, don't talk so much and all that fun stuff. So again, that's probably why they are a little bit quiet. Aside from that, going into this upcoming week, 21.6% of the free float's being shorted. Works out to be 153 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow average 1.64. Cost to borrow minimum, it's nothing significant, but it is negative 0.01%. So whenever it is negative, that does mean that there is brokers out there physically paying people to short Opendoor. Again, that's an annual rate, so it's not anything of significance, but it is still something to pay attention to. So this definitely does prove that there is a certain level of manipulation out there. As far as options from a bull standpoint, you see a consensus for it to be kind of around that 750 to 8, potentially as high as 9 going into this upcoming week. Bears are anticipating for it to be kind of further breaking down between that 6 to 650. This is the open interest to kind of watch for. On a side note, with us closing at 716 on Friday, that does mean that the 7 and below strike prices are in the money. So you have 14,000 at the 7, 7,000 at the 650, and then 16,000 at the 6. So potentially you might see a little bit of a pop, but nothing significant, no gamma squeeze or anything. That was a monthly change, so that was fairly active. Looking forward into this upcoming week, you have a little bit of a strong wall at the 8 and at the 9. So 28,000 at the 9, 23,000 at the 8. Reason why I bring that up is technically if Opendoor does really push higher to one of those levels by, let's say, Friday, shorts might try to artificially manipulate it and cause it to go below these strike prices. So again, something just to keep in mind. But there was one thing that I did want to bring up. So I did a video, I think it was roughly around 10 a.m. on the Friday. So of course, at that time, I didn't really go over some of these transactions. So in the dark pool, sometimes dark pool gives some insight to what might be coming. So there was 2 very large transactions that did occur roughly around a minute, 2 minutes apart. And this was at 12:21 and 12:23, 14.9 million and 14.8. Dark pool is rather tricky, right? Because technically it's supposed to be anonymous. So you have to do a little bit of a deeper dive to see whether these were buys or sells, because technically you have to look at the chart just to see the price action at the time. As well, you can kind of look at the time just to see some of the transactions before and after. So based on the timing of it, it actually did cause this nice push higher. So big money did, in my opinion, buy in. So I don't know if someone knows something on why, for instance, let's say about 28 or 29 million dollars worth of stock was purchased. So big money always knows something ahead of time. And for them to buy it, especially at that 689 and 690 range, that goes to show that maybe they feel like a little bit more upside is coming, possibly even rolling over into this upcoming week. So let me know your thoughts on that. Do you think that someone knows something, or is it just maybe just random luck or something else? One thing as well, with it at 716 going into this upcoming week, it is currently trading between this pivot and this S1. So I'm looking at the 1-day chart. So these are very strong support and resistance points, and the fact that Opendoor is very volatile, this is why you do see a little bit wider gaps. So 765 is going to be that point to really watch for it to get over early on in the week. So 765, 1023 is going to be the next strong kind of targets. And then 507 will be that support point. Moving over to the chart right over here. So it is wedge bound currently between that 10 and 50-day moving average. So far, it hasn't actually touched either for the last week for the most part. And the fact that it's below the 10-day moving average does signal that's kind of losing a little bit of momentum, which is very apparent based on the volume. You can even see the volume is just dropping. But ultimately, you really want to watch for this 50-day moving average. So that's sitting at 652 to hold. And Friday did have a low of 679, but still you do see a little bit of gaps, not official gaps, but kind of weakening in both directions. So looking at the market position, you don't really see that much willing buyers. Looks like it kind of picks up around that 620, which is below that 50-day moving average. And same goes for willing sellers. You see a little bit of a gap up to 779. So assuming, let's say, the market takes that update from China as a positive, this is where you could see a nice push higher to at least that 10-day moving average early on in the week. And then dependent on companies unveiling their earnings, and then on Thursday, Friday, the data points, that could be enough to really push the market higher. But again, I think Opendoor definitely does need to draw a lot more attention to it, get more capital to come in, thus really pushing it higher. So let me know your viewpoint on Opendoor. Where do you see things going for this upcoming week? Do you think that things are going to break down completely, or do you think that we're going to have a nice push higher? So what's your overall thoughts on Opendoor? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.